And that's when Tristan de Montebello walked into my Toastmasters club. And little did I know that he was on a mission to learn a new skill as fast as possible in order to be featured, hopefully, in Scott Young's book, Ultra Learning. Because Scott Young was looking for guinea pigs of like, who are people that can learn a skill in the fastest amount of time and achieve extraordinary results.
No way.
Yeah.
So he was recruited. How did that work? Was he like hired to go?
No, not like that. He was just one of Scott's readers. And I think Scott put out like a blog post of like, I'm looking for interesting people to take on learning projects. And depending on how the success of your project, you might be featured in my book type of thing.
Interesting.
And so for like a reference, one of the people in Scott's book, Ultra Learning, is the world champion of French Scrabble. So it was the person who won the world championships in French Scrabble. And I think at the start of that project, the person didn't speak French. Yeah. Yeah.
So did he succeed in making it into the book?
Tristan?
Yeah.
He's all of chapter 3.
Really?
Yeah.
No way. I just was talking to Scott about his next book, which is Get Better at Anything. So we're going to be helping him get the word out about that. That's such this world is so small.
It's so small.
Funny.
Yeah.
Interesting. So he was there. Did he have a pre-existing interest in public speaking, or
he was actually going to do piano. That was the skill he was going to choose to ultra learn, but he was already a guitarist and had a guitar course, and Scott suggested like, or maybe it was a different friend that suggested this, like, it's too similar of a skill. It might not be impressive from the outside if you succeed in that. And then a different friend said, if you're going to do a project that's this intensive, you should really learn a meta skill, meaning like a skill that can feed into all areas of your life and improve everything.
It's great advice.
It was really good advice. And so Tristan chose public speaking. He walked into my Toastmasters club. His version of the story, which I love, is he saw me speak and do one of these table topics, and he was very impressed by like the ability to just, he also thought I prepared something, and someone told him like, oh no, this is all on the fly.
Wow.
So he was like, I want to be coached by that guy, which was really flattering. I started being his mentor, but very quickly he discovered that there's this contest called the World Championships of Public Speaking. It's held by Toastmasters every year. There's like 30,000 people who compete every year. And Tristan thought like, oh, this is great. There's like, it's like Little League. There's area contest, division contest, district contest. There's all these levels, and you get eliminated. Everyone gets eliminated except the winner. And he's like, this is a perfect ladder or structure for my learning project.
Yeah.
And so I started coaching him. He signed up for this contest. He had to qualify by giving 6 speeches, because you couldn't participate in the contest if you didn't give 6 qualified speeches. But the contest was starting in 2 weeks, and usually people give 6 speeches in like 2, 3, 4 months. So Tristan like accelerated, contacted all these clubs across LA just to get his 6 speeches in. And by the time he participated in his first round contest, I already knew that like, wow, this guy is willing to do a lot just to achieve his goal.
What made him so motivated? It couldn't have been just to be featured in this book. And was he working during this time, or was this like a full-time pursuit?
So he had a business called About the Start. I think he still has it, but it's more on the side now. It's teaching guitar independence. But About the Start was the company itself was about how do you teach adult to learn new skills fast. So that was always his passion. He's the type of guy who like picks up juggling in a day, picks up surfing in a day. Like he's a real strategic learner, and he's kind of obsessive about learning. And so I think he wanted to, in service of that business, with the serendipity of Scott and with just more of a spaciousness in his schedule, I think everything coalesced to take on a real learning project. And he was going to blog about his whole experience and everything. So he chose public speaking, and he found this contest, and he signed up, and we met. And the contest lasts for 7 months. So if you keep winning. And so he won the contest at the club level, and then we started refining the speech, and then he won at the the division level or the area level. And every step of the way, we're like watching Finding Nemo and trying to pick up storytelling techniques. We'd watch like Fight Club and we'd go, whoa, like there's this twist. How do we add a twist to this speech? And we'd break down all the world champion speeches and study like, how are they using the stage? So it was a real deep dive into storytelling, into public speaking, into, we spoke to movie directors and they would review the script. So it was a real strategic, focused project. And he just kept winning and winning and winning. And by the time it was like 4 months in, he qualified for the semifinals, which is like the top 100 in the world. And we had 3 months to write a second speech that he would give on the stage.
So you were writing partners and then he was delivering the talks.
So I'd say for the first 3 months, I was more the writing coach, if anything. But it was more like the storytelling coach. Like, oh, there seems to be, one of the biggest insights we had from the World Championship journey was the need for the mentor character. We would create these 7-minute speeches, these beautiful stories, and they wouldn't resonate with the audience. Something was missing, and we'd collect feedback. And over time, we saw like, oh, all of the life lessons in this story, all of the wisdom, the message of the story is coming from Tristan. That's the problem. People don't want to hear you be the hero. They want to hear the mentor be the hero. You're the main character. You're just like me.
Interesting.
And so we're like, oh yeah, so in Star Wars, there's the Yoda character. In Karate Kid, there's Mr. Miyagi. Like there's always a mentor character that's the giver of advice. And so we're like, all right, the story's missing something. So we changed the whole story, and we ended up Tristan remembered like, oh yeah, his grandmother was like a very pivotal person in his life. And so we actually centered the story around her influence in his life. And she was this like motorcycle riding grandma, you know? Like, so it's things like that we discovered through the process.
You treated it like a science, like almost like a product development process.
I guess,
You iterated, you refined. I don't think most people think of speaking that way at all.
And they shouldn't. Let me be very clear. This was a science project. And it was for a contest. So it's kind of like if you're going to commit to winning a contest, you got to study the contest rules. You got to understand what the judges are judging on. You got to break down what this thing is. What we learned, and I want to come back to this, is that like the contest is not the real world. How you win the contest is not how you become a fantastic speaker. But there are certain elements of storytelling and public speaking that do transfer. So yeah, we really obsessed over the contest. But I do want to tell you one story. Tristan had this uncanny ability to do more than what everyone else would do. So typically at Toastmasters, people would give a speech once a week at their Toastmasters club. Tristan hired a virtual assistant and said, I want you to find me all the Toastmasters in the Los Angeles area. I want you to contact them for me, and I want you to schedule a speech for me every single day.
What?
So every day I want to have a speech scheduled. So what we'd do is he'd meet me at 6 a.m. before I started work, and we'd have this piece of paper, and we'd try to make a draft as far as we could. By 8 a.m. I had to go to work. We'd have this incomplete draft, and there's gaps in it. And I was like, all right, Tristan, you got to fill in the gaps in the moment. He'd drive to like Long Beach to go to Long Beach Toastmasters, show up with this half-baked script, stepped on stage, improvised his speech,
Unbelievable.
Filmed it all on camera, got feedback from every audience member, came back home, reviewed it. And the next morning at 8 a.m., we'd go over the footage, we'd go over the feedback, we'd start working on the script. What might be missing, what character, what motifs might be missing. Okay, he's got to go. He's got another speech lined up in Torrance. And so he did this.
Wait, a different speech or the same speech that he's refining?
The same speech that he's refining, but the refining of a speech is not linear. It's like one day it's a story about the grandmother. The next day it's like, no, let's actually make it about how you met your wife. And it's like, oh, no, actually this scene doesn't work. We need to find a totally different character or a totally different plot line. So the speech is going in all sorts of directions as we try to figure out like what's going to resonate with the audience, what's also true to ourselves. But every day, Tristan is taking these half-baked progress ideas, showing up and doing it live, and just some of them are just like brutal. Like, it's cringy to watch for me. I can't imagine what it's like for him, because he's just like doing his best to put it all on the fly in the moment.
Oh my
but
gosh.
he's just so relentless for the pursuit of feedback that he would do it. He'd collect the feedback. We'd study it the next day, and incrementally over time, the pieces would start to connect, and eventually we'd have the skeleton of a speech, and suddenly the feedback's getting stronger and the elements are starting to click in. And I would say, like, if the average Toastmaster gave like a speech, 2 speeches a month, that's on the higher side. Tristan probably gave like 20 to 30 a month. And so he just outworked everybody in the competition.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So how did it turn out?
So we reached the semifinals. He went up on the stage. There were 10 competitors, and he decided to go. You can choose. You have 2 speeches. You can choose which one you give. He decided to go with the weaker one, the one we thought was not as good. And he gave the speech. And after him, this contestant goes up, and they're walking up the next contestant, and he's blind, and they roll out a carpet and they walk him through. And the first thing he shares in his story is like, when I was 6 years old, I remember the sound of chickens, and I look out through the kitchen window and I see them, and then all of a sudden, pitch black, and I've never been able to see again. And I'm sitting in the audience going, there's no way Tristan's gonna win this thing. Like, the story is insane. But somehow, and this is the hard thing with speeches, is like to keep an audience's attention all the way through for 7 minutes in an engaged and raptured way is hard. And so that contestant's story had a dip toward the middle, and it never recovered. And so Tristan ended up winning the semifinals.
Oh my gosh.
And there's this photo of us I just like climbed on top of him and we're hugging. It's like, so probably one of the best moments of our lives. He got to the top 10 of the world championship, and he stood in front of 3,000 people, and he gave his best speech, and he didn't win. It was in that experience and that moment that we knew, like, first of all, wow, this was super fun. I think we should keep working together. And then second of all, it was like, I feel like we should start teaching what we've learned, because we learned a whole bunch.